Hey everybody, it's Greg Betty here. Today we're going to do something a little different. I'm going to edit one of the viewer photos. So this photo was submitted by Srijan Shakya. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Now also, I'm going to put a link to his Facebook page just below this video in the description box. I suggest you check it out. He has some really great work there. So let's go over the specs of this photo first, and then we'll get right into the retouch. So this photo was shot on a Canon 5D Mark III with a 70-200 lens. The shutter speed was 500. The aperture was f2.8 and ISO was 400, and the lighting was in natural light. So that's the specs on that. You can see it at the bottom of the photo as well. ISO 400, 500, f2.8, 200 millimeter. All right, so the first thing I want to do here is look at the white balance of this photo. Now I assume this was shot on auto white balance. We see 5054. Daylight's usually between 5400 and 5600, so I'm going to take that up to about 5400 right away. You can see that warms up the skin a little bit. As far as the tint, I like to have a little bit more red in the skin, so I'm going to go to a tint of 1. So just a touch more of that. Now the second thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to look at the exposure. I'm happy with the overall exposure. I'm just going to raise this highlight to about 17. That's just going to rein in a little bit of the highlights there. And then as far as the shadows, I'm just going to bring those up. Maybe we'll go to about 2 on there. Now that's all I'm going to do. I like Capture One for its raw conversion, so that's what I use this for. Sometimes I'll do more in Capture One, but for this photo, that's all I'm going to do. Next thing I want to do is go Image. I'm going to go Edit With, and we're going to go right into Adobe Photoshop. Now let's look at the recipe here. It's going to be a TIFF format when we get to Photoshop, 16-bit, uncompressed, and Adobe RGB color space, resolution 300. I'm going to click Edit Variant. That's going to open up in Photoshop, and we'll resume when we get into Photoshop. All right, so here we are in Photoshop. First thing I'm going to do is duplicate this image, Command J on the Mac to duplicate that image. Now, I usually assess a photo, and I'm looking at this right now, and there's really just too much headspace right here. So the first thing I'm going to do is do a crop to this image. I'm going to bring it down just to above the hairline, because we're really going to make it about the person in the photo. And so I think I might even just bring that a little closer there. And then as far as the right-hand side of that, I think I'll just bring it into about right here. And I like that crop. Normally I would crop a photo at the waist or the knee, but it's shot like this. I don't want to cut off her hand, so I'm going to leave it just like that. Hit Enter or Return. Now as I look at this, I can see this white patch here, a little distracting. I think I might do a vignette at the end of this retouch. Now because it's zoomed out, I'm not going to do any skin retouching on the face. I would normally save that for if I was doing, say, like a face, I would do, the skin work a little bit more in detail. Now, as I look at this, I can see a few threads down here. So I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to take care of that. A couple different ways you can do that. I'm going to use the healing brush. Now, you can use the spot healing brush or the healing brush. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to choose the healing brush. I'm going to click Option, and that'll be nearby. So bracket keys to make that smaller. I'll zoom in a bit more with the Command plus on the keyboard, and then Option. And then I'm just going to take this thread, and I'm just going to just sort of blend this in here. I'm just trying to make it match the background a bit, just to make this a little less distracting. You can see here we've got it there. If you get too close to something, you can get some blurring, so you have to be conscious of the blurring, and we'll try to blend in that blurring so it's not too obvious, because obviously we just want to improve this, don't want to make it worse. So let's just see how this looks. I mean, I could still see this here a little bit. Let's just zoom out and see if that's any better. So I'll just click on this layer here, and you can see overall that just sort of took that distraction away for me. So other than that, I'm pretty happy with this. I think it's a really nice image. I think it's a good exposure, and really it doesn't require a lot of work at all. And normally I would do some dodging and burning. So let's just do a quick little bit of dodge here then. So there's a couple different ways to do this. I'm just going to click on a curves layer. I'm going to bring this up, make it a little brighter. And then what I'm going to do is just on the mask here, hit Command I. That inverts it. So then I click on there, I hit the B key, and then what I could do is just adjust the flow. So we're going to go with an opacity of 100. And then I think what I'll do is have a flow of about, let's say 2% right there. Now I'm going to be painting in white over that black mask, and I'm just going to look here and see what areas we could do some dodging here. So maybe just a little bit under the eye. So I can adjust the brush size with my bracket keys. So I'm just going to do that, and I'm just going to lighten this. One thing that's good about using a curves layer, I'll just toggle that on and off. You can see that get lighter. One thing about using a curves layer is it'll never get brighter than what you set it for. So we're just doing a little bit under the eye here, just to lighten that up. Now this is going to happen naturally with the lighting when it's above right here. So I just want to kind of minimize a little bit of that. Sort of blend that in a little bit better. And we're not going to go too crazy on that. Also, too, what I think I'll do is bring up the catch light a little bit in her eye, just so that we see that a little brighter, just to give her eyes a little more life. We'll work on that catch light a little bit, just to bring that out. And then also what we could do is we could just sort of brighten the teeth a little bit if we want, but I don't think I'll bother to do that. So I'm just kind of doing a little bit of the dodging in these areas under the eye. Now what I might do too is we'll do another curves layer. So I'm going to add another curves layer. Now what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to do some burning. So the opposite, we'll just sort of bring it down. Now one thing you can do too, so it doesn't affect the colors, is if you go to luminosity. So I'll do that on the previous curves layer as well. I'm going to go to luminosity. So that way we're not affecting the colors of the image. Now again, I'm going to click Command I. I'm going to click on that. Now wherever I brush, I'm going to darken. So I'm going to darken the eyebrows a little bit here. And we're keeping the settings the same. So the flow is at 2 and the opacity is at 100. So I'm just going to darken in the eyebrows a little bit. And then also what I like to do, if I toggle this on now, you can see the eyebrows get a little darker. Now what I like to do too is I like to darken the part in the hair, because I want your eye to go to the person's face. And so we're going to just take out any distracting elements. Now if you find this isn't working fast enough, you can just come up here and say make that a flow of 5, and we'll just darken that in a little bit more. And the thing is too with the curves layer is I can just sort of pull that curves down as well if I want to, and make that even darker if I feel like I can't get dark enough with this. Now if I toggle this on and off, you can see we're just sort of just shading in this part here. So I've got one layer for dodging, one layer for burning. They're both curves layers. And these are just sort of small little tweaks that I'm making to the image. Now if we look at her face, and if we just sort of toggle off, you can see that part got a little darker, and then you could see just very faintly, if you look under her eyes, they just got a little bit lighter. So really just faint, faint, faint. I almost have to zoom right in to be able to see that. So again, here's the dodging and burning. And I'm not seeing anything there for some reason. So let's go here. So if I go Option and I click on this layer, I can see that. So what I can do is if I don't feel like that is enough, I can click on this curves and then we'll just look under her eyes. See, we're affecting the color too if I go too much. So I definitely don't want to go crazy with that. So let's just try that again. Toggle on and off, on and off. Let's just go to this layer here. You know what the problem is? Look here, color. So whenever things are not working properly, just look at your different options here. That was our setting there. We had that on color accidentally. So now if I toggle that on and off, it's better. Now I can just go back to just a subtle amount right there. And then let's just check this one. Okay, that's luminosity. All right, okay, so if sometimes things don't work properly in Photoshop, just have a look around. I had that set on color instead of luminosity. That affected things. All right, so let's just do a couple more things here. Now, as far as the hair, I'm pretty happy with most of the highlights. Let's go back to this layer here, and we'll go back down to a flow of 2%. I'm just going to just sort of enhance some of these highlights in the hair just a little bit. I don't want to go crazy. I want to kind of see where the highlights are, and I just want to sort of go over them. Hopefully you can see where my pen is doing its work. I'm just going over some natural areas of the hair that are already highlighted. I'm just bringing them up a little bit, and that's about it. I don't think I need to do anything there. And then toggle that on and off. Again, it's just subtle, and then under the eyes, it's subtle. And then here, that part, I think I'll go a little darker on there. I'm going to go about 6%. I'm clicking on the burn, and then I'm just going to burn in this area a little bit more. Just darken that area in. And I think that's pretty good. I'll toggle that on and off. Okay, I see a difference. All right, so I'm just going to glance at this again. Like I said, the vignette there, I need to do something about the white in the upper left. Now also too, I like to do some color toning. So I'm going to go to selective color. I'm going to go to the blacks in the image. And then you can see here, I can sort of change the color of the dark parts. I'm going to go with like just something subtle, like a +2, and then the magenta. I'm going to go a little more on the magenta side. I'm going to go +1. The yellows, I'm going to go to the blue side. I'm going to go minus, probably just -1. And the black I'll leave there. Now if I toggle that selective color on and off, you can see how it kind of just cooled the background off. So I kind of like that effect. Now let's address that little piece at the background. So what we can do here is I can create a new layer. And if I hit the X key, I switch the white and black on the left. If I hit Command Delete, I can create a black layer. Now I can do different things here. So if I click over here, if I right click, you can see we have different options. And I'm not getting any of them. So I'm just going to click here. And I just downloaded a new driver and it's driving me crazy. I can't get the right click to work. Okay, that's not working. Okay. There we go, elliptical. All right, so I want the elliptical marquee tool. Now if I take that off, I can see where her face is. And I'm just going to create an elliptical marquee tool that's going to be around her face. And then all I have to do is just sort of toggle that on. And I'm going to leave that about there. Now if I put that here, now if I just hit the delete key, we've got that, and then Command D, and I get rid of that. Now what we can do with this layer here too, is we can reduce the opacity. So if I slide the opacity down, you could see that it's a little better. But you can see we've got this hard edge around there. So now what I can do here is go Filter, I can go Blur, Gaussian Blur, and now we can just sort of blur that edge that's around that elliptical marquee. So if I go to 20, as I go higher, I'll go to 200. You can see that that became faded out. I'm going to say OK. And then again, now we can reduce that opacity as well. And you can see we have a little bit of a vignette. Now, a lot of different ways to do that. That may have been a little more time consuming. But anyway, you can see that we've just got a little bit of a vignette, but that's still bothering me back there. So another thing you can do, create a new layer. We're going to hit the B key. And again, what we'll do is we could just sort of paint in. So if I go X, we've got black. I could just paint in some black. So if I hit 5 there on the flow and I just make my brush a little bit bigger. Now we can look at our brush settings too and the softness of our brush. And so I'll get a soft brush, and then what I'll do is I'll just kind of paint in this area a little bit just to take our eye off of that. I'm going to toggle that on and off, and let me just sort of make this a little more even. And then what I can do is just sort of just scale that back. So just reducing that opacity maybe to about 70 right there, and I toggle that on and off, and just sort of get that edge right there. And again, we'll go back. In fact, I kind of like it darker. So that sort of just takes it away. So maybe about 90. Let's go with about 90. So I like to do the option click on the bottom layer, the background, and kind of look at the before and after and see how that looks. Now I'm pretty happy with that overall. One thing though, let's just play with the colors a bit. So we're going to create a colors layer here, and we're going to go up to, let's see, do we want to do hue saturation? Let's try this. Now, I think the reds are a little bit hot on this. So we can go through our different colors. There's different ways to do this. You can see we have our master. We can go to our reds, and we have our saturation of those reds. Now you can see we can make them pop more, or we can reduce them. I think I might just reduce them just by a -2. And that's probably it. Maybe a little bit of the skin tone as well. Maybe it's just a little too yellow, so I'll go -1. Let's just have a look at how that affects things. So that's before, that's after. It's really not doing too much. So I think I'll just go back up. We're going to go to our reds, and we're going to take the reds down maybe -5. Let's just have a look at that. So that's before, and that's after. So just if you find the reds are popping a little too much, I think -3 is probably a happy place for that. I'm just going to bring that back up to about -3. So you can see these are just really subtle, subtle differences if we look at the different layers. So just reducing some of the hot reds there, and then the background there with the white, and then having that subtle vignette there on the image, just sort of bringing some of the tones down, and then selective color, sort of cooling off the background a bit. And then we've got our part in the hair, just sort of taking that down a bit. And then we have just under the eyes, just lightening that over just ever so slightly, and then just popping that catch light in the eye. And then we have our initial layer where we took some of those threads out. But if you just add all those little touches, and, you know, obviously with the crop, then you sort of get a little more pleasing of an image. Now, it really depends. Like I said, if it was someone's face, I'd do some more skin retouching. But overall, I think this is a much improved image. If we go to the bottom layer of the background here, click the Option key on the Mac, you can see all the changes at once. So that's before, that's after, that's before, and that's after. So that's my take on his image there. Again, I'm going to put his Facebook page in the description box. This image was from Srijan Shakya, and it was shot on the Canon 5D Mark III with the 70-200. So make sure you click on the link below. He's got some great images, and that link is in the description box just below this video. All right, it's Craig back to here. Thanks for watching. Let me know if you have any comments or questions just down below. If you're not already a subscriber, hit that subscribe button and hit that bell notification to get email updates of future videos. Thanks again for watching. I'd love to hear some comments about this video, so just post them right down below. Also, hit that thumbs up if you found these tips helpful. All right, thanks for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one.